I still remember the exact moment when those words left her mouth, slicing through the air like a blade meant to wound. "You're nothing but a burden on this family, Claire. A constant reminder of failure." My future mother-in-law, Victoria Ashford, stood there at her own son's engagement party, champagne flute raised high, smile perfectly painted across her lips. 200 guests heard every syllable. My fiancé Marcus heard them, and for exactly 3 seconds, I felt myself disappearing, shrinking into something small and invisible. Then I remembered exactly who I was. I'm Claire Donovan, 34 years old, 11 years clean from alcohol addiction, founder of Renewal Path, a network of 9 rehabilitation facilities across California that have helped over 4,000 people reclaim their lives. I built a $28 million enterprise from absolutely nothing except sheer determination and the stubborn refusal to stay defeated. But to Victoria Ashford, the woman whose son I was supposed to marry in 2 weeks, I was just a former alcoholic, damaged, broken, an embarrassment she'd been desperately trying to erase from the family narrative. What Victoria didn't know was that I'd spent the last month uncovering every carefully constructed lie she'd built her pristine reputation upon. The prestigious art gallery she claimed to own, completely fabricated. The old money lineage she used to justify treating me like something scraped off her designer shoe, pure fiction. The philanthropic foundation bearing her name, nothing but an empty shell. But the gambling debts hidden behind closed doors, those were devastatingly real. By the time that engagement party ended, Victoria's carefully curated image would be shattered beyond repair. Her secret creditors would be making calls. Her son would be seeing the truth, and what I discovered about her financial schemes would have investigators knocking on her door within 72 hours. But that was just the beginning. What I learned about myself, about the difference between carrying shame and wearing strength, would change everything forever. If you're listening to this, I need you to understand something. This story is about what happens when someone mistakes your kindness for weakness, your humility for worthlessness, and your recovery for permanent failure. It's about what happens when a woman who rebuilt herself from absolute rock bottom refuses to let anyone make her feel insignificant ever again. Let me tell you how this all started. 7 months before the engagement party, I stood outside Marcus's townhouse in downtown San Diego, holding a bouquet of white roses and a box of homemade lemon cookies. My hands were trembling, despite the warm California sunshine. Marcus had been talking about his mother for weeks. Every phone call, her name emerged with a kind of reverence that made me simultaneously hopeful and anxious. "Claire, you're going to love her. She's refined, cultured, she values family above everything. She'll see how special you are." Those words meant everything to me. Marcus had been sober for 6 years, working as an architect, rebuilding the life he'd nearly destroyed. If he'd found happiness, if he'd found someone who supported his recovery, I would have loved her purely for that reason. I knocked on his door at exactly 3 o'clock, as we'd agreed. Victoria answered. The first thing I noticed was her appearance. A powder blue Chanel suit, cream pearls that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage, and a diamond bracelet that caught the afternoon light. The second thing I noticed was her expression when she saw me, a microsecond flash of something that resembled distaste before her features rearranged themselves into practiced politeness. "You must be Claire," she said, not reaching for the flowers or offering any warmth. Her hands remained folded in front of her. "Mrs. Ashford, it's such an honor to finally meet you." I extended the roses and cookies toward her. "Marcus mentioned you love white roses and anything lemon-flavored." She accepted them with 2 fingers, as though they might somehow contaminate her perfectly manicured hands. How thoughtful. Though I should mention I'm actually allergic to most flowers. Marcus must have forgotten. Behind her, Marcus appeared looking flustered and uncomfortable. "Mom, you're not allergic to roses. I specifically asked you last week." "Did you?" Victoria's smile remained frozen. "Well, perhaps I'm developing new sensitivities. Age does that to a person." I stepped into the townhouse. Marcus's place was modest, but beautifully designed, reflecting his architectural eye. Clean lines, natural light, carefully chosen vintage furniture. It didn't match Victoria's Chanel and diamonds at all. Victoria placed the flowers on a side table, without putting them in water. The cookies she set down unopened, as if they were something unworthy of acknowledgement. "So, Claire," Victoria settled onto the sofa with practiced elegance. "Marcus mentioned you work in the rehabilitation industry." There it was. The slight pause before rehabilitation industry. The subtle emphasis that made it sound like I cleaned sewers for a living. "I founded and operate Renewal Path," I said, sitting across from her in Marcus's reading chair. "We have 9 facilities across California. We provide residential treatment, intensive outpatient services, family counseling, and aftercare programs." "Oh, that's charitable work then." Victoria's smile never reached her eyes. "Very noble for someone with your personal history." The words landed like a slap, sharp and deliberate. But I'd learned in 11 years of sobriety never to react to every slight, every subtle cruelty designed to make me feel less than. "My history is exactly why I do this work," I said evenly. "I understand what our clients are experiencing. I've walked the same painful road." "Of course." Victoria checked her watch, a gesture so pointed it couldn't be accidental. "And how long have you been managing these facilities?" 11 years. Started with one center in San Bernardino, expanded from there." "Impressive." The word felt hollow, empty of genuine meaning. Marcus looked like he wanted to crawl under the furniture. "Before that," Victoria continued, her voice taking on a sharper edge, "you were struggling with addiction yourself, correct?" I felt Marcus tense beside me. "Mom, we don't need to. It's fine, Marcus." I kept my voice steady. "Yes, Mrs. Ashford. Before I built Renewal Path, I was the person I now help. I was broken, lost, barely surviving." Victoria leaned forward slightly. "You see, Claire, my family values discretion. We don't discuss personal struggles openly. We believe certain matters should remain private." "Your family," I said carefully. "Marcus mentioned you come from old San Francisco money, art gallery ownership, correct? Among other investments." Victoria stood abruptly, smoothing her suit. "If you'll excuse me, I need to make a phone call. Family business matters, you understand." She took her purse with her. I noticed that immediately. Women don't usually take their expensive designer purses to make phone calls in their son's townhouse, unless there's something in there they need desperately. When the powder room door clicked shut, Marcus turned to me, his face flushed with embarrassment. "Claire, I'm so sorry. She's just protective. She doesn't know you yet." "She seems very polished," I said neutrally, choosing my words with care. "She comes from a different world than us. The Ashford family has been prominent in San Francisco society for generations. But Claire, she'll come around. She just needs time." I wanted to ask why Victoria's hands trembled slightly when she set down her coffee cup, why her pupils seemed dilated despite the bright room, why she needed to excuse herself with her purse after less than 20 minutes of conversation. But I didn't, because Marcus looked hopeful, and I'd learned that love makes people blind to warning signs they'd otherwise see clearly. Victoria returned 15 minutes later. Her demeanor had shifted, become somehow brighter, more animated, almost manic in her sudden enthusiasm. "I apologize for the interruption," she said, settling back onto the sofa. "Business matters wait for no one, not even family gatherings." The rest of the afternoon passed in stilted conversation. Victoria dominated every topic, steering discussions toward her supposed gallery openings, her charity luncheons, her connections to influential families. She asked me nothing about myself, my work, or my relationship with Marcus. By the time I left 3 hours later, I had a knot in my stomach I couldn't quite name or shake. In my car, I sat for a long time, staring at Marcus's building before starting the engine. Something was profoundly wrong. I didn't know what yet, but 11 years of recovery had taught me to trust my instincts. Those instincts had saved my life more than once. I pulled out my phone and texted my business partner, Dr. Melissa Chen. "Need your perspective urgently. Coffee tomorrow?" Her response came within seconds. 8 a.m. at Coastal Grounds. I drove home through the San Diego streets, past the first Renewal Path Center where I'd gotten sober, past neighborhoods where I used to buy bottles to numb the pain, past the life I'd left behind forever. Something was very wrong with Victoria Ashford, and I was determined to discover exactly what. If you feel my words, show your support by liking the video and subscribing to the channel. And tell me from which city you belong, so I can see how far a woman's impactful voice can reach. Help me build this community so we can bring more truthful stories for you. The next 4 months felt like watching storm clouds gather on a distant horizon. Marcus's calls became less frequent, more strained. When we did talk, he sounded exhausted, distracted. Things are just complicated with the wedding planning, Claire. Mom wants everything perfect. Perfect meant I wasn't invited to the venue selection. Perfect meant I wasn't included in the menu tasting or floral consultations. Perfect meant when I offered to contribute financially, I had significant resources now. Victoria declined through Marcus with a message that cut like glass. Mother prefers to handle all arrangements herself. She has very specific standards. Standards. A $35,000 engagement party at the Bel Air Country Club was apparently standard for the Ashford family. I started documenting everything, not because I was looking for problems, but because the problems kept presenting themselves like uninvited guests. February 8th, dinner at Marcus's place. Victoria excused herself to the powder room 4 times in 90 minutes, always with her purse. Each time she returned more energetic, more talkative, pupils visibly dilated. February 19th, lunch with Marcus. He looked completely drained. When I asked if he was sleeping well, he said, "Mother's been having episodes, anxiety attacks. I stay up with her most nights." But there was something in his voice, a defensiveness that didn't sound like him at all. March 2nd, I asked Marcus if I could meet more of Victoria's family before the wedding. He became immediately tense. The Ashfords are extremely private, Claire. They don't do casual family gatherings. But surely for their son's wedding. Not everyone broadcasts their entire life like you do with your recovery work. The words came out sharp, cruel. Then his face crumpled. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. I'm just stressed." But he did mean it. Or rather, Victoria meant it, and I was hearing her words through Marcus's mouth. March 15th, Marcus stopped attending his Tuesday evening recovery support group. He'd been going consistently for 4 years straight. When I asked about it, he said, "Mother thinks I've progressed beyond needing that kind of structured support. She says I'm doing exceptionally well." Mother thinks, Mother says, Mother believes. My son was disappearing into someone else's narrative, and I could see it happening in real time. March 23rd, the turning point. I went to drop off some documents Marcus needed for updating his emergency contacts at work. I knocked on his door. No answer, but I could hear voices inside, so I tried the handle. Unlocked. Marcus was in the kitchen, back turned, loading the dishwasher with mechanical precision. Victoria was in the living room, phone pressed to her ear, pacing like a caged animal. "No, Thomas, you don't understand." Victoria's voice was low but intense. "His fiancée has a history. Alcohol problems. Yes, I know it's embarrassing. I've been managing the situation." I froze in the doorway, hands still on the knob. She keeps trying to involve herself in wedding planning, wanting to meet the extended family. I've been deflecting. No, Marcus doesn't see it clearly. He thinks she's some recovery success story, some inspiration. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. "I know. I've already arranged the seating for the engagement party. She'll be at table 18, near the service entrance and kitchen, barely visible in the photographs. Table 18, near the service entrance, where I'd be hidden away like something shameful. She'll understand her place eventually," Victoria continued, voice dripping with contempt. "Or she won't, but it won't matter after they're married. We'll be spending most of our time in San Francisco anyway, and I'll make sure Claire understands that her presence at family events should be minimal." I backed out quietly, pulled the door shut as softly as possible, left the documents in Marcus's mailbox downstairs. In my car, I didn't cry. I'd cried enough in early recovery to last several lifetimes. Instead, I felt something else crystallizing inside me. Pure, focused determination. Because this wasn't just about me being disrespected anymore. This was about Marcus being isolated from his support system by someone who either didn't understand or didn't care how fragile recovery could be. Someone who was making him ashamed of the very thing that saved his life. And something else was nagging at me persistently. The constant bathroom trips with her purse. The mood fluctuations. The anxiety episodes. The way Victoria's energy seemed to swing wildly within the same evening. I'd seen those exact patterns before, in the mirror, 11 years ago. Dr. Melissa Chen and I had built Renewal Path together over the past decade. She provided the medical expertise and clinical knowledge. I provided the lived experience and understanding. Together, we'd helped thousands of people get clean, stay clean, rebuild their shattered lives. If anyone would understand my concerns about Victoria, it was Melissa. We met at Coastal Grounds, a coffee shop in La Jolla that we'd been using as our informal office since the early days. Melissa was already there when I arrived. 2 lattes waiting on the table, her kind face creased with concern. "You sounded worried in your text," she said without preamble. "What's happening?" I told her everything. The bathroom trips, the mood swings, Marcus's behavior changes, the cruel phone conversation I'd overheard. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment, processing. "Claire," she said finally, measuring her words carefully, "I need to ask you something, and I need complete honesty. Is any of this coming from a place of not wanting to share Marcus? Not wanting his mother to be important in his life?" I'd asked myself the same question repeatedly. "I don't think so, Melissa. I want Marcus to be happy. If Victoria genuinely made him happy and supported his recovery, I'd love her for that alone." "But you don't think she makes him happy?" "I think she's changing him, and not for the better." I pulled out my phone, showed her a photo from last week when we'd met for coffee. Marcus looked exhausted. Dark circles under his eyes, a tension in his jaw that hadn't been there before. Melissa studied the image carefully. "You're thinking she might be using?" "The signs are all there. The bathroom trips, the purse dependency, the mood fluctuations, the anxiety episodes Marcus mentioned. Claire, we need to be extremely careful here." Melissa handed my phone back. "If you're wrong, you'll destroy your relationship with Marcus permanently. If you accuse his mother of addiction without solid evidence—" "I know," I interrupted. "That's why I need your help." "What kind of help?" "You still have connections in San Francisco from your residency at UC Medical, correct?" "Some, yes. Victoria claims her family is old San Francisco money. Art gallery ownership, philanthropic foundation, very established and prominent. But Marcus has never visited them. In 7 months of us being engaged, he hasn't met a single member of her extended family." Melissa's eyes sharpened with interest. "You think the family background is fabricated?" "I think something doesn't add up. I Googled Ashford Gallery San Francisco. Nothing comes up. No business registration, no property records, no reviews, no social media presence." "That's unusual for an established gallery." "Exactly. And the Ashford Foundation she supposedly runs, I can't find any record of it. No tax filings, no board members, no grant recipients." Melissa leaned back in her chair. "Claire, what you're asking me to do? That's investigation territory. That's diving deep into someone's private life. Are you absolutely certain you want to go there?" I thought about Marcus's tired face, about Victoria's hand reaching for her purse like a lifeline, about my future husband saying, "Mother thinks I don't need my support group anymore." "I'm certain," I said firmly, "because if I'm right, Marcus is about to marry into a situation built entirely on lies. And if Victoria is struggling with the same disease that almost killed both of us, she needs help, not enablement." Melissa was quiet for a long moment, then pulled out her phone. "I'll make some calls. But, Claire, if I find something, we need to think very carefully about what we do with that information." "Agreed. And if I don't find anything, if Victoria's background is exactly what she claims, then I'll apologize to Marcus and try to accept her, regardless of how she treats me. But I already knew Melissa would find something. You don't develop instincts like mine without learning when they're screaming truth at you." 1 week later, Melissa called me at midnight. "Claire, you need to sit down." I was in my home office, reviewing client progress reports. "What did you find?" The Ashford Gallery doesn't exist. Not in San Francisco, not anywhere. There's no business license, no tax records, no property holdings under that name. The website looks professional, but the domain was registered only 8 months ago. My heart started racing. What about the Ashford Foundation? Also fabricated. The website uses stock photos and content plagiarized from 3 legitimate charities. There's no nonprofit registration, no board of directors, no grant history, nothing. So her entire family business is a lie. It gets worse, Claire. Melissa's voice was tight. I have a colleague who works in financial investigations for high-level medical fraud cases. I asked her to run a discreet background check on Victoria Ashford. And? Victoria doesn't come from old money. She comes from Modesto. Her father was a middle school teacher. She attended community college for 2 years, never graduated. I felt cold spreading through my chest. So everything she told Marcus about her background, complete fiction. But Claire, there's more. Victoria has significant gambling debts, over $200,000 owed to various casinos in Las Vegas and tribal casinos across California. 200,000? I could barely process the number. She's been settling debts by taking out personal loans, credit cards, even a reverse mortgage on a condo she owns in San Bernardino. The property is about to go into foreclosure. Oh my God, there's more. 3 months ago, Victoria was banned from 2 casinos for erratic behavior. Security reports noted she appeared intoxicated or under the influence, though she wasn't drinking alcohol. My worst fears were confirming themselves in real time. Prescription medications? I asked quietly. I can't access those records legally without proper authorization, Melissa said carefully. But Claire, the pattern you described, the bathroom trips, the mood swings, the purse dependency, combined with the gambling addiction and financial desperation. She's using something, probably pills, probably doctor shopping like I did. That would be my professional assessment, yes. I sat in silence, processing everything. Victoria Ashford had built an entirely fabricated identity. She'd lied to her son about everything. She was drowning in gambling debt, likely struggling with prescription drug addiction, and she was making Marcus ashamed of his recovery while hiding her own active addiction. What do? I asked Melissa. That's not a medical question, Claire. That's a personal one. But if it were my loved one about to marry into this situation, I'd want them to know the truth before making a legal commitment. After we hung up, I sat alone in my office for hours, staring at the framed photo on my desk. Marcus at 26, 3 months sober, standing outside our first renewal PAP center. His smile was genuine then, hopeful, unburdened. Because once I revealed what I knew, there would be no going back. I picked up my phone and called Jackson Webb, a private investigator I'd worked with 2 years ago, when we had embezzlement issues at one of our centers. Jackson was former police, methodical, and most importantly, he understood addiction because his daughter had been through our program. Jackson, it's Claire Donovan. I need your help with something extremely sensitive. How sensitive? My fiancé's mother isn't who she claims to be, and I need to know who she really is before he marries into her world of lies. There was a pause. Tell me everything. Jackson Webb worked faster than I could have imagined. Within 10 days, he'd assembled a file that made my stomach turn with each page I reviewed. We met at my office at Renewal Path after hours, when the building was quiet and empty. Your instincts were correct, Jackson said, spreading documents across my desk, like evidence at a crime scene. But it's considerably worse than you anticipated. Show me. He pulled out a bank statement first. This is Victoria Ashford's primary checking account. Notice the pattern of deposits. I scanned the numbers. 3,000 here, 7,000 there, 5,000, 10,000. Always in cash, always deposited at different branch locations across Southern California. Where's this money coming from? That's what I asked. Jackson pulled out another document. It traces back to something called Ashford Consulting Services, LLC. No physical address, no employees, no legitimate business activity. Just a shell company for moving money. Money laundering? Possibly. But here's where it gets interesting. He showed me another paper. 4 months ago, Victoria applied for a $75,000 personal loan from Pacific Credit Union. My eyes widened. $75,000? She claimed annual income of $150,000 from Ashford Gallery, provided fabricated pay stubs, employment verification letters, tax returns, all of it forged. The bank approved the loan. That's fraud. Textbook fraud. And the bank is currently investigating, but they move slowly. By the time they figure it out, she planned to be long gone. I felt nauseous. What did she use the money for? Wedding deposits mostly. The $35,000 engagement party came from that loan. The venue deposit for the wedding, another $15,000. Her designer wardrobe, jewelry, the lifestyle she's been presenting to Marcus, almost all of it purchased with fraudulent loan money. Jackson pulled out more documents, but the gambling debts are what's really drowning her. She owes $215,000 to various casinos and creditors. They're threatening legal action. Some have already filed judgments against her. How is she surviving? Barely. She's been juggling creditors, making minimum payments, taking out new loans to pay old ones. It's a house of cards that's about to collapse spectacularly. I stared at all the evidence, feeling the weight of what I was about to do to Marcus. What about the prescription medications? Can you confirm that? Jackson hesitated. I can't legally access medical records, but I can tell you what I observed. I followed Victoria for a week. She visited 4 different doctors across 3 counties, 4 different pharmacies. The pattern is consistent with doctor shopping. What medications? Can't say for certain without records, but based on the pharmacy she used and the frequency of visits, likely painkillers and anxiety medications. Opioids and benzodiazepines would be my guess. The same combination I'd been addicted to 11 years ago. The same drugs that had nearly killed me. There's one more thing, Jackson said quietly. I found connections between Victoria and a man named Gerald Masterson. He's been arrested twice for insurance fraud and once for prescription forgery. He's currently out on bail awaiting trial. How are they connected? They've been seen together multiple times at a casino in Palm Springs. Phone records show frequent communication. I believe Gerald might be supplying Victoria with forged prescriptions or helping her obtain medications illegally. I closed my eyes. This was so much worse than I'd imagined. Claire, Jackson's voice was gentle. What are you going to do with this information? I looked at all the evidence spread across my desk. The fake businesses, the gambling addiction, the fraudulent loans, the probable prescription drug abuse, the criminal connections. It was enough to destroy Victoria, enough to break Marcus's heart, enough to cancel a wedding 2 weeks away. But was it enough to save my fiancé from making a catastrophic mistake? I need to confront her, I said finally. Give her one chance to come clean, to admit she has a problem, to ask for help. If she takes it, I'll help her. If she doesn't, then you'll do what? Jackson asked. Then I'll make sure Marcus knows the truth before he's legally bound to her lies. Jackson gathered the documents back into a folder. Be careful, Claire. People who build deceptions this elaborate don't surrender them easily, and they definitely don't appreciate being exposed. After Jackson left, I sat alone in my office with Victoria's file of lies spread before me. 2 paths stretched ahead of me, both painful. Path 1. Tell Marcus everything immediately. Show him the evidence. Risk him not believing me. Risk him choosing loyalty to his mother over truth. Risk our relationship shattering irreparably. Path 2. Confront Victoria first. Give her a chance to get honest, to seek help, to tell Marcus herself. And if she refused, then expose everything at the engagement party where witnesses would make denial impossible. I thought about something my sponsor Rachel told me in early recovery. Claire, being clean is passive. You're just not drinking. But recovery is active. It's doing the hard things even when they terrify you. This terrified me more than anything had in years. The possibility of losing Marcus felt like drowning. But watching him marry someone living a complete lie felt worse. I made my decision. The next afternoon, I went to Victoria's condo in San Bernardino, when I knew Marcus would be at work. I'd texted her directly that morning. We need to talk, just the 2 of us. It's important. Her response had been cold and brief. Fine, 2 o'clock, my place. I arrived early, heart pounding like a drum against my ribs. The condo complex was nice, but not luxurious. Nowhere near the old money elegance Victoria had implied. The building showed signs of deferred maintenance, the landscaping slightly overgrown. Victoria answered the door looking nothing like her usual polished self. No makeup, hair pulled back messily, wearing a faded silk robe and leggings. She looked exhausted, almost fragile. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, and her hands trembled slightly as she held the door. "What do you want, Claire?" Her voice was hostile, but underneath I heard fear. "Can I come in?" She stepped aside, without a word. The condo was a mess, completely unlike Victoria's usual obsessive neatness. Mail piled on the counter, dishes in the sink, curtains drawn even though it was a beautiful afternoon. The air smelled stale, like the windows hadn't been opened in days. Victoria sat on the sofa, arms wrapped around herself defensively. "Say whatever you came to say." I sat across from her in an armchair that had seen better days. "Victoria, I know about the pills." Her face went white, then flushed red. "I don't know what you're talking about." "The Vicodin, the Xanax, the Ambien, 4 different doctors, multiple pharmacies. The bathroom trips with your purse, the mood swings. I know because I've been exactly where you are." "You've been spying on me." Her voice rose sharp with panic. "You have no right." "I have every right to protect my fiancé." "Protect him from what? From me?" She laughed bitterly. "I'm his mother. I'm the one who raised him, supported him, never abandoned him like some people abandon their families when they're too busy drinking themselves to death." The words were meant to wound, but they didn't. I'd heard worse from myself in the mirror years ago. "I also know about the gambling, Victoria. The 200,000 in debt. The casinos that banned you. The reverse mortgage on this condo that's about to go into foreclosure." Silence. Heavy and crushing. "I know about Ashford Gallery and Ashford Foundation," I continued quietly. "I know they don't exist. I know you're from Modesto, not San Francisco society. I know about the fraudulent loan, the fake pay stubs, all of it." Victoria's hands were shaking violently now. She pressed them against her legs, trying to stop the tremors. "You can't prove any of that," she said. "I have bank records, loan applications, investigator reports, casino security footage. I can prove all of it." For a long moment she just stared at me. Then slowly, her carefully constructed facade crumbled. Tears started streaming down her face, taking the last remnants of her pride with them. "You don't understand," she whispered. "I had to be someone better, someone worthy of respect, someone Marcus wouldn't be ashamed of." "Ashamed of what?" I asked. "Ashamed of being ordinary, of being nobody, of being just another middle-class woman with nothing special to offer." She gestured at herself. "Marcus is brilliant, talented, successful. He deserves a mother who matches that, not someone whose biggest achievement was graduating high school." "So you created an entire fictional identity." "I wanted to give him something to be proud of, a legacy, a family history that meant something. By lying to him about everything—" "It started small," Victoria said, her voice breaking, "little exaggerations about my background. Then Marcus started believing it, seemed proud when he talked about his family to colleagues. I couldn't take it back. I couldn't let him see who I really was." "And the gambling?" She closed her eyes. "It started as entertainment, something to do. Then I won some money, and for the first time in my life, I felt powerful. Like I could actually be the wealthy, sophisticated woman I was pretending to be. But you lost more than you won, always. I kept thinking the next game would be different, the next card would change everything, but it never did. The debts kept growing. And the pills?" I asked gently. Victoria's eyes opened, met mine. After a particularly bad night at the casino, I couldn't sleep, couldn't stop my mind from racing. A doctor prescribed Xanax. It helped. Then my back started hurting from stress. Another doctor gave me Vicodin. Then I couldn't sleep without Ambien. And when one doctor wouldn't refill the prescriptions, I found another. Then another. I told myself it was medical, that I needed them, that it wasn't like what you did, buying alcohol from liquor stores like some desperate. She stopped herself, but the words hung in the air between us. Like some desperate addict? I finished for her. Victoria, there's no difference. Addiction doesn't care whether your drugs come from a doctor or a dealer. It takes everyone the same way. I'm not like you, she insisted, but her voice was weak. These are prescribed. It's legal. I'm not. 4 doctors, Victoria. Fake names at pharmacies. That's not legal. That's fraud. That's exactly what I did 11 years ago when I was destroying my life. She stood up abruptly, pacing the small living room like a caged animal. What do you want from me? Why are you here? To prove you're better than me? I'm here to offer you help, I said quietly. I run 9 treatment facilities. I know the best doctors, the best programs. I can get you into treatment today if you're willing. No. She shook her head violently. I don't need help from you. I don't need your pity or your treatment centers. Then do it for Marcus. Get honest with him. Tell him you're struggling. Let him support you through recovery. I can't. Victoria's voice cracked. If Marcus knows the truth, if he sees who I really am, he'll hate me. He'll be ashamed of me. He'll choose you over me because you're the successful recovery story, and I'm just another pathetic addict. Marcus loves you, Victoria. But he can't help what he doesn't know about. She turned to face me, and the look in her eyes was pure desperation mixed with venom. If you tell him any of this, I'll deny everything. I'll say you're lying, that you're jealous, that you've been trying to sabotage our relationship from the beginning. Who do you think he'll believe? His loving mother, or his paranoid fiancée projecting her own addiction issues onto me? I have evidence, Victoria. Bank records, investigator reports. Illegally obtained, invasion of privacy. I'll sue you. I'll sue your business. I'll make sure everyone knows that Claire Donovan, the great recovery expert, uses her resources to stalk and harass people. Her voice was rising now, hysteria creeping in. I'll destroy your reputation, your business, everything you've built. I stood slowly, meeting her eyes. I'm giving you one chance, Victoria. One opportunity to get honest, to ask for help, to tell Marcus the truth yourself. If you do that, I'll support you through recovery. I'll help you rebuild with honesty instead of lies. And if I don't, then I'll make sure the truth comes out, with or without your cooperation. We stared at each other across her messy living room. 2 women who'd both battled addiction, one who chose honesty and recovery, one who chose lies and continued use. Get out, Victoria said, her voice cold and final. Get out of my home and stay away from my family. This is your last chance. I said, get out. I walked to the door, then paused. Victoria, I've been where you are. I know how terrifying it is to face the truth, but I also know that lies only make the fall harder when it finally comes. And it will come. It always does. Are you threatening me? I'm telling you the truth, something you should try before it's too late. I left her standing there, shaking and defiant in her falling-apart condo, clinging to lies that were about to destroy everything. In my car, I didn't cry. Instead, I called Jackson Webb. Jackson, I need everything documented and ready to present. Not to Marcus yet. We're going to wait until the engagement party. You're sure about this? I'm sure. Because Victoria needs to hit rock bottom before she'll accept help. And Marcus needs to see the truth for himself, with witnesses so she can't manipulate him later. And I would have to live with being the person who destroyed his mother's carefully constructed image. But I'd also be the person who potentially saved both their lives. Because without intervention, Victoria's addiction and fraud would eventually destroy them both, far more completely than any public revelation could. I started my car and drove home, knowing I'd made the only choice I could live with. The 2 weeks before the engagement party felt like holding my breath underwater, waiting for something inevitable to surface. Marcus stopped calling altogether. Our daily text exchanges dwindled to nothing. When I reached out, his responses were brief and distant. Busy with work. Mom needs help with party details. Talk later. Through mutual friends, I heard disturbing reports. Marcus had stopped going to his gym, stopped attending his architecture firm's social events. One of his colleagues mentioned he looked exhausted all the time, distracted, not himself. It's like he's disappearing, James, his best friend and best man, told me over coffee one afternoon. Every time I try to talk to him about anything real, he deflects. And Victoria is always there, always monitoring, always controlling the conversation. Have you talked to him about your concerns? I asked. James shook his head. He accused me of not supporting his family, of being jealous of his relationship with his mother. It didn't sound like Marcus at all. It sounded like someone else's words coming out of his mouth. Victoria's words, Victoria's narrative, Victoria's control. I wanted to tell James everything, show him the evidence, explain what was really happening, but I'd made my decision. Wait for the engagement party. Wait for the public moment when denial would be impossible. Keep being his friend, I told James. He's going to need you very soon. James studied my face carefully. Claire, what aren't you telling me? And be there for Marcus when everything falls apart. 3 days before the engagement party, I received an unexpected call from a number I didn't recognize. Is this Claire Donovan? A woman's voice, hesitant and shaking. Yes, who's calling? My name is Dorothy Ashford. I'm Victoria's mother. I nearly dropped the phone. Mrs. Ashford, how did you get my number? I've been trying to find Victoria for over a year, Dorothy said, her voice thick with emotion. She stopped taking my calls, blocked my number, cut off all contact. But I saw her name mentioned in a Society page article about an upcoming engagement party in San Diego, and I've been trying to reach anyone connected to her. You've been looking for her? For a year? Longer than that, really. Victoria and I had a falling out about 2 years ago, when I confronted her about her gambling. She'd stolen money from me, forged my signature on a loan application, lied about why she needed cash. When I refused to enable her anymore, she vanished. My heart was pounding. Mrs. Ashford, what can you tell me about Victoria's background, her real background? There was a long pause. She told Marcus we're old San Francisco money, didn't she? Gallery owners and philanthropists? Yes. Dorothy's laugh was bitter. I'm a retired school cafeteria worker from Modesto. My husband was a maintenance supervisor at the community college before he passed away 5 years ago. We're good people, but we're not wealthy. We're not connected. We're just ordinary. Victoria created an entire fictional family history. She always wanted to be special, Dorothy said sadly. Even as a child, she'd make up stories about our family being secretly important, secretly wealthy. I thought she'd outgrow it. Instead, she just got better at lying. Do you know about her addiction? I asked carefully. The pills? Yes, it started after a car accident about 3 years ago. She got prescribed pain medication and couldn't stop when the prescription ran out. I tried to help her get into treatment, but she refused. Said she didn't have a problem, that she was just managing her pain. Mrs. Ashford, I need to ask you something important. Victoria is engaged to my fiancé. Actually, I'm engaged to her son, Marcus. He has no idea about her real background, her gambling, her addiction, any of it. She's built this entire false identity. Dorothy was quiet for a moment. That poor boy. Does he know she's been lying to him? Not yet. In 3 days, at their engagement party, I'm planning to expose everything. Oh my God. Mrs. Ashford, I know this sounds cruel, but Victoria needs to hit rock bottom. She refused help when I offered it privately. She threatened to destroy me if I told Marcus the truth. She's drowning in addiction and debt and lies, and if someone doesn't intervene, she's going to take my fiancé down with her. I understand, Dorothy said quietly. I've watched my daughter destroy herself for years. I've tried everything, begging, ultimatums, offers of help. Nothing worked. Maybe public accountability is the only thing left. Would you be willing to come to the engagement party, to be there when the truth comes out? There was a long silence. Then, I've been searching for my daughter for over a year, trying to find a way to help her. If this is what it takes, if this is the bottom she needs to hit before she'll accept help, then yes, I'll be there. After we hung up, I sat with the weight of what I'd just done. I'd invited Victoria's estranged mother to witness her daughter's public humiliation. It felt simultaneously necessary and cruel. But sometimes love requires cruelty. Sometimes saving someone means breaking them first. The morning of the engagement party arrived with that particular kind of California sunshine that makes everything look perfect on the surface. I woke up at 5 a.m. in my own condo, having barely slept. Marcus hadn't stayed over in weeks. He'd been staying at Victoria's condo, helping her with final party preparations. My phone had several texts waiting. From Melissa, "I'll be there by 6 with all documentation. You're doing the right thing." From Jackson, "Evidence packages prepared. See you tonight." From James, "Whatever's about to happen, I've got Marcus's back." From Dorothy Ashford, "I'm driving down from Modesto this morning. Thank you for giving me a chance to reach my daughter." I got ready slowly, deliberately. I chose a simple navy dress, elegant but not flashy. Pearl earrings my mother had given me when I graduated from my treatment program. Minimal makeup. I wanted to look like myself, not like I was trying to compete with Victoria's designer elegance. As I drove to the Bel Air Country Club, I rehearsed what I would say, how I would present the evidence, how I would give Victoria one final chance to come clean before I exposed everything. People deep in addiction rarely surrender their lives until they have absolutely no other choice. The country club was stunning, exactly the kind of venue Victoria would choose to project wealth and status she didn't have. White roses everywhere, crystal chandeliers, a string quartet playing softly. The room was set for 200 guests, with a head table for Victoria, Marcus, and close family. And there in the far corner near the service entrance and kitchen doors was table 18, my assigned seat, hidden, minimized, made invisible. I didn't sit there. Instead, I found Melissa near the entrance. She had a leather portfolio containing all our evidence. Jackson was there too, looking professional in a dark suit, his investigator's folder discreetly carried. "Last chance to back out," Melissa said quietly. "Once this starts, there's no stopping it." "I'm not backing out. This needs to happen." Guests started arriving at 6:30. I recognized some of Marcus's colleagues, a few of my own friends from the recovery community, people from Victoria's fabricated social circle who had no idea they were celebrating lies. At 7, Victoria made her entrance. She looked stunning, a cream Valentino gown that probably cost $15,000 of fraudulent loan money, diamonds at her throat and wrists that sparkled under the chandeliers, hair professionally styled, makeup perfect, the absolute picture of old money elegance and refinement. Marcus was beside her, looking handsome in his tuxedo, but exhausted. Dark circles under his eyes despite professional makeup attempting to conceal them. A tightness around his mouth that spoke of stress and sleepless nights. Victoria saw me across the room. Our eyes met. For just a moment, her mask slicked, and I saw fear flash across her face. Then she smiled, raised her champagne flute slightly in my direction, a gesture of triumph. She thought she'd won. She thought I'd accepted my place at table 18, accepted my role as the embarrassing future daughter-in-law, to be hidden and minimized. She had no idea what was about to happen. If you feel my words, show your support by liking the video and subscribing to the channel. And tell me from which city you belong, so I can see how far a woman's impactful voice can reach. Help me build this community, so we can bring more truthful stories for you. Dinner was served at 7:30. I still hadn't sat at table 18. Instead, I moved through the room, greeting guests, making polite conversation, waiting for the right moment. Victoria kept glancing at me, her expression shifting from confusion to irritation. She'd expected me to know my place, to accept the table in the corner, to remain appropriately invisible. But I'd spent 11 years learning that my place was wherever I chose to stand, and tonight, I was choosing to stand in the light. At 8:15, after the main course had been cleared, Victoria stood up to give a toast. The room quieted. Glasses were raised. Marcus looked uncomfortable, like he knew something was coming, but couldn't quite identify what. "Thank you all for being here tonight," Victoria began, her voice carrying perfectly across the elegant room. "This celebration means everything to our family." She paused, looked around at the 200 guests, soaking in the attention. Marcus and Claire's engagement represents the joining of two very different worlds, she continued. The Ashford family has always valued tradition, discretion, excellence. We've built our legacy over generations through hard work and unwavering standards. I felt my pulse quicken. Here it came. But we also believe in compassion, Victoria said, her eyes finding mine across the room. We believe in giving people second chances, even when their past might make them less than ideal family connections. Gasps rippled through some guests. Others looked confused. Mother, what are you doing? Sit down, sweetheart. Let me finish. She put a hand on his shoulder, pressing him back into his seat. Claire comes from a very different background than ours, Victoria continued, her voice taking on a sharp edge beneath the polite words. She's had to overcome significant personal failures, addiction, the kind of choices that destroy families and ruin lives. The room was dead silent now. People were staring at me. I felt heat rising to my face, but I didn't look away from Victoria. And we applaud her recovery. We truly do. Victoria's smile was poisonous. Everyone deserves redemption. But there are certain standards in society, certain boundaries that distinguish people of substance from people who've had to rebuild from nothing because of their own terrible decisions. Mother, stop this right now. Marcus was standing again, his face flushed with anger and embarrassment. No, Victoria's voice turned cold. This needs to be said. Claire has been questioning my family, interrogating our background, treating us with suspicion and disrespect. It's inappropriate and offensive. That's because I started to speak, but Victoria cut me off. Because what? Because you're jealous? Because you can't accept that Marcus has a mother from a better background than yours? That he comes from a family with actual legacy and standing? The room was utterly silent, except for the quiet clink of someone setting down a glass too hard. My family built our success through 3 generations of integrity, Victoria continued, her voice shaking now. We didn't have to claw our way up from rock bottom because we never made the catastrophic choices that put us there in the first place. I felt something shift inside me, not anger, clarity, because Victoria wasn't talking about me anymore. She was talking about herself. Every accusation was confession. Every insult was projection. So while we welcome Claire into our family, Victoria raised her glass higher. We hope she understands that there are boundaries, social boundaries, professional boundaries, personal boundaries that people from our background simply cannot compromise. She looked directly at me. To new beginnings, high standards, and knowing your place in the world. About half the room raised glasses awkwardly. The other half sat in stunned, uncomfortable silence. Marcus's face was bright red. Mother, I can't believe you just... But I was already walking toward the front of the room. Victoria, I said, my voice calm and clear. That was quite a speech. She turned to me, still holding her champagne flute, looking triumphant and slightly manic. I'd like to propose a toast of my own, if you don't mind. I walked to the front of the room, and Marcus was shaking his head frantically at me. But I kept moving forward with purpose. Actually, I said, stopping beside the head table, I'd like to toast your family too, Victoria. Specifically, your remarkable family business and impressive legacy. Victoria's face started to drain of color. But first, I looked toward the entrance where Melissa had been waiting. I think our guests would be interested in learning a little more about the family they're celebrating tonight. Dr. Chen, would you join us? Melissa walked in carrying her portfolio, her face professionally neutral. Victoria's champagne flute was shaking in her hand now. What is this? This is completely inappropriate. This, I said calmly, is the truth. Melissa set her portfolio on the head table and looked out at the 200 assembled guests, her voice steady and professional. Good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Melissa Chen, Claire's business partner at Renewal Path. 3 weeks ago, Claire asked me to verify some information about Victoria's background using my professional connections and resources. Victoria started to stand up. This is outrageous. This is our engagement party, not some... Please sit down, Mrs. Ashford, Melissa said calmly. Or should I say, Ms. Ashford? since you've never actually been married, despite telling Marcus his father died when he was young. The room erupted in whispers. Marcus's face went white. "What?" he said, his voice barely a whisper. "Mom, what is she talking about?" Victoria's hands were shaking so violently she had to set down her champagne glass. "She's lying. She's making this up because she's jealous." "Am I lying about this?" Melissa pulled out a document. "This is your birth certificate. Father listed as unknown. No marriage certificate on file in California or any other state." Marcus sank back into his chair like his legs had given out. "Am I lying about this?" Melissa pulled out another document. "Property records showing you own a condo in San Bernardino, not a mansion in San Francisco. A condo that's currently in foreclosure proceedings due to an unpaid reverse mortgage." Gasps rippled through the crowd. People were pulling out phones, some recording, others frantically texting. "The Ashford Gallery in San Francisco," Melissa continued, pulling out more papers, "doesn't exist. No business license, no tax records, no physical location. The website was created 8 months ago using stock photos and plagiarized content from legitimate galleries." Victoria was standing now, backing away from the table. "Just stop this." "The Ashford Foundation," Melissa held up another document. "Also fabricated. No nonprofit registration, no board of directors, no charitable activities. Just a fake website designed to create an illusion of wealth and philanthropy." The whispers had become a roar. People were standing, some moving closer to see the documents, others backing toward the exits. "Your entire family background," Melissa said, her voice cutting through the noise, "is fiction. You're not from San Francisco society. You're from Modesto. Your father wasn't a real estate magnate. He was a maintenance supervisor at a community college. Your mother isn't a philanthropist. She's a retired cafeteria worker." "No." Victoria was shaking her head frantically. "No, that's not. Marcus, don't listen to them. They're trying to destroy us." "We're trying to tell him the truth," I said quietly. "Something you should have done years ago." Marcus was staring at his mother like he'd never seen her before. "Mom, is this true? Any of this?" Victoria's face crumpled. "Baby, I can explain. I just wanted to give you something to be proud of. A legacy. A family history that meant something. By lying to me?" His voice cracked. "About everything?" "There's more," Jackson Webb said, stepping forward from where he'd been waiting near the side entrance. "I'm Jackson Webb, licensed private investigator. I was hired to verify Victoria's financial situation. 4 months ago, Victoria Ashford applied for a $75,000 personal loan from Pacific Credit Union using forged employment documents, fake pay stubs, and fabricated tax returns. This is fraud, and the bank is currently investigating." Victoria stumbled backward, caught herself on the edge of the table. "The money from that fraudulent loan," Jackson continued, "was used to fund this engagement party, the wedding venue deposit, and to maintain the lifestyle she's been presenting to all of you. The designer clothes, the jewelry, the appearance of wealth, all purchased with money obtained through criminal deception." Someone in the crowd said, "Oh my God." "But that's not the worst of it," Jackson said. "Victoria also has gambling debts totaling over $200,000 owed to various casinos across California and Nevada. She's been banned from 2 casinos for erratic behavior while under the influence of substances." Marcus stood up slowly, his face a mask of disbelief and devastation. "Under the influence? Mom, what is he talking about?" Victoria reached for her purse instinctively, desperately. Her hands were shaking so badly that the purse slipped from her grasp. It fell in slow motion, hit the floor, the clasp burst open, and prescription bottles scattered across the pristine white tablecloth like evidence at a crime scene. Orange and white and translucent brown, rolling, bouncing, some falling to the floor with hollow plastic sounds. At least 15 bottles. Different doctor names on every label. Different patient names. Victoria Ashford, V. Morrison, Vicky Morrison. Victoria M. Ashford. Pills spilling everywhere. White ones, blue ones, yellow ones, pink ones. One bottle rolled to Marcus's feet. He picked it up with trembling hands. Victoria Ashford, hydrocodone 10 milligrams, Dr. Richardson, do not mix with alcohol. He read aloud, his voice hollow. Another bottle sat on the table directly in front of him. V. Morrison, Xanax 2 milligrams, Dr. Patterson. People were taking photos now. The flashes felt like lightning. Someone gasped loudly. A woman near the front started crying. Victoria dropped to her knees, frantically trying to gather the pills, sobbing hysterically. You don't understand. I need them. The anxiety, the pressure. I can't function without them. I can't be enough without them. Marcus just stood there, staring at the bottle in his hand, then at his mother on the floor, scrambling to collect pills with shaking hands. You're using, he said quietly. You're an addict. Victoria looked up at him, mascara streaming down her face in black rivers. I'm not like her. She pointed a shaking finger at me. These are prescribed. I have medical reasons. I'm not some street alcoholic like Claire was. 4 different doctors, Jackson interrupted, reading from his papers. 7 different pharmacies. Multiple fake names. That's not medicine, Victoria. That's addiction. That's doctor shopping. That's fraud. It's not the same, Victoria was shouting now, still on her knees, pills clutched in her fists. I have prescriptions. It's legal. I'm not destroying my life like she did. No, I said, kneeling beside her on the floor. You're just destroying Marcus's life instead. Victoria looked at me with pure hatred. This is your fault. All of it. If you'd just stayed in your place, if you'd just accepted that you weren't good enough for this family, none of this would be happening. You're right, I said quietly. If I'd stayed silent, if I'd accepted being hidden at table 18, if I'd let Marcus marry you without knowing the truth, none of this would be happening. You'd still be living your lie, and Marcus would be legally bound to your addiction and fraud. You destroyed me, Victoria whispered. You destroyed everything. No, Victoria, you destroyed yourself. I just refused to let you destroy Marcus too. That's when I saw her, Dorothy Ashford, standing at the back of the room near the entrance, a small woman in her late 60s, wearing a simple floral dress from Macy's, tears streaming down her weathered face. Victoria, Dorothy said, her voice breaking. Baby, it's me. It's Mom. Victoria's head snapped up when she saw her mother, her real mother, standing there among all the elegantly dressed guests. Something inside her shattered completely. No, Victoria breathed. No, you can't be here. You don't belong here. I've been looking for you for over a year, Dorothy said, walking forward slowly. Ever since you disappeared after stealing money from me. Ever since you cut off all contact because I tried to get you help. Marcus was looking between his mother on the floor and this stranger approaching them. Who are you? I'm Dorothy Ashford, your grandmother, she said gently. The grandmother Victoria told you died before you were born. The remaining guests who hadn't already fled were standing now, phones out, recording everything. This wasn't just a scandal anymore. This was a complete implosion of everything Victoria had constructed. You're alive? Marcus's voice was barely audible. Very much alive. Living in Modesto, where I've always lived. I'm a retired cafeteria worker, Marcus, not a San Francisco socialite. Just an ordinary woman who loves her daughter and has been desperately trying to save her from herself. Victoria was rocking back and forth on the floor now, pills still clutched in her hands. Her perfect facade completely destroyed. I couldn't let you see me like this, Marcus. I couldn't let you know the truth. I wanted to be someone you could be proud of. By lying to me my entire life? Marcus's voice was getting louder now, emotion finally breaking through his shock. By making up a dead father, by creating a fake grandmother, by pretending to be someone you're not? I was protecting you. You were protecting yourself. He was shouting now. You were so ashamed of who you really are that you built this entire fantasy, and you made me live in it. You made me ashamed of Claire for being honest about her recovery, while you were lying about everything. Victoria tried to stand, stumbled, fell back to her knees. Dorothy moved to help her, but Victoria recoiled. Don't touch me. You don't get to do this. You disowned me. I never disowned you, Dorothy said firmly. I told you I wouldn't enable your gambling and addiction anymore. I told you that you had to choose between getting help and continuing to destroy yourself. Because I couldn't be what you wanted me to be. I wanted you to be honest, Dorothy said, her voice breaking. I wanted you to be healthy. I wanted you to stop hurting yourself and everyone who loves you. Marcus pulled off his ring. The engagement ring Victoria had insisted he buy, the one that cost $8,000 of fraudulent loan money. He set it on the table with a finality that echoed through the silent room. The wedding is cancelled, he said quietly. Marcus, no, please. Victoria tried to crawl toward him. I was going to get help. After the wedding, I was going to stop. I was going to fix everything. Like you were going to tell me about the fake gallery, the fake foundation, the fake grandfather, the fake entire life? His voice was cold now, distant. When exactly were you planning to stop lying, Mom? I love you. Everything I did was because I love you. You don't love me, Marcus said, and the pain in his voice made my heart break. You love the idea of who you wanted me to think you were. You love the fantasy you created, but you don't love me enough to be honest with me. He looked at me across the wreckage of the engagement party. Claire, I'm so sorry. I'm so incredibly sorry for everything, for not believing you when you tried to warn me, for letting her disrespect you, for choosing her lies over your truth. I walked to him, and Marcus, my broken, devastated fiancé, collapsed into my arms like a drowning man reaching for a life raft. I'm sorry, he kept saying. I'm so sorry. Shh, I held him, while he shook with silent sobs. You have nothing to apologize for. You loved your mother. That's never wrong. But she was lying about everything. And you didn't know. How could you have known when she spent your whole life building those lies? Over Marcus's shoulder, I watched Dorothy helping Victoria to her feet, mother and daughter, reunited in the worst possible way, in front of 200 witnesses, to Victoria's complete destruction. The engagement party dissolved into chaos. Guests were leaving quickly, some offering hurried condolences to Marcus, others just fleeing the uncomfortable spectacle. The country club staff looked horrified, unsure what to do with the pills still scattered across the floor. Melissa approached with a plastic bag. The authorities will need them. Victoria heard that. The authorities? You're calling the police on me? The FBI, Jackson corrected. The bank fraud is federal. They've been building a case for weeks. This just accelerates their timeline. Victoria's legs gave out completely. Dorothy caught her, held her upright. It's okay, baby. It's okay. We're going to get through this. I'm going to prison, Victoria whispered. I'm going to lose everything. You already lost everything, I said, not unkindly. The pills, the gambling, the lies, they already took everything real from you. Prison might actually be what saves your life. She looked at me with such devastation. How can you stand there so composed when you just destroyed my entire world? Because I've been where you are, Victoria. 11 years ago, I hit my rock bottom. I lost my job, my apartment, my dignity, everything, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because I finally had nothing left to lose. I finally had to get honest. I can't do what you did. I'm not that strong. Neither was I. But you build strength one honest day at a time. Dr. Melissa approached Victoria carefully. Victoria, I can get you into a treatment facility tonight. Medical detox, therapy, comprehensive care. Will you go? Victoria looked at her mother. If I go, will you stay, or will you leave me again? Dorothy's face crumpled. Baby, I never left. You did. But yes, I'll stay. I'll stay as long as it takes. I'll visit every day if they let me. I'll be here. For a long moment, Victoria just stood there, supported by her mother, surrounded by the wreckage of her lies. Pills still scattered on the floor. Shocked guests filming on their phones. Her son, holding his former fiancé, crying. Then slowly she nodded. Okay, she whispered. Okay, I'll go. I don't know how to do this, but I'll try. Melissa made a phone call immediately. I have a bed at Serenity Ridge. It's one of our best facilities. I can have someone here in 20 minutes to transport you. As we waited, the country club staff began cleaning up. The pills were collected carefully, documented. The remaining guests filtered out, whispering, still recording on their phones. This would be all over social media within hours. Marcus sat with me at a table far from the head table, holding my hand like it was the only solid thing in a world that had just turned to quicksand. "I don't know who she is," he said quietly. "My whole life I thought I knew my mother. I thought I came from this legacy, this history, and none of it was real. She's someone who got lost in addiction and shame," I said gently. "She's someone who built lies because she was terrified of being ordinary. But Marcus, underneath all of that, she's also your mother who loved you enough to get help when she finally hit bottom." Is that enough? I don't know, but it's a start. The transport team from Serenity Ridge arrived 30 minutes later. 2 counselors, calm and professional, prepared to take Victoria to begin her long journey toward recovery. Before she left, Victoria approached Marcus. She looked small now, without her designer clothes and perfect makeup and carefully constructed facade. She looked like what she was, a sick, scared woman, facing the consequences of years of bad choices. "Marcus," she said, her voice hoarse from crying, "I know you probably hate me right now. I know I've destroyed any trust you ever had in me. But I want you to know that every lie I told because I wanted to be worthy of being your mother." "You were always worthy," Marcus said, tears streaming down his face. "You just didn't believe it. And that's the saddest part of all of this, Mom. You were enough. You were always enough. You just couldn't see it." Victoria broke down completely then. "I'm so sorry. For everything. For lying to you. For hurting Claire. For wasting years building a fantasy instead of building something real with you." "Are you sorry enough to actually do the work this time?" I asked quietly. "To get honest? To face yourself without the pills and the lies?" Victoria looked at me, and for the first time since I'd met her, I saw something genuine in her eyes. Not superiority or contempt, just raw, painful honesty. "I don't know if I can do it," she whispered, "but I'm going to try. Because losing Marcus tonight, seeing the pain in his eyes, that's worse than any withdrawal I'll ever face." As the counselors led her away, Dorothy following close behind, Marcus and I sat alone in the nearly empty country club ballroom. The string quartet had long since packed up. The flowers that cost thousands of dollars sat wilting in their arrangements. The beautiful venue that was supposed to celebrate our engagement had become the site of a complete catastrophe. "What do we do now?" Marcus asked. "Now?" I took his hand. "Now we go home. We let this night end. Tomorrow we start dealing with everything that comes next, but tonight we just survive it." "The wedding? We'll figure that out later. Right now you need to grieve. You need to process. You need to be angry and hurt and confused and all the things you're entitled to feel." He was quiet for a long moment. "Thank you for stopping me from marrying into that. From legally binding myself to someone living a complete lie. I couldn't let you do it, Marcus. I love you too much. Even after I chose her over you for months? Even after I let her treat you terribly? Especially then. Because that's what love does. It protects, even when protection is painful. Even when it costs everything." We left the Bel Air Country Club at 11 that night. The venue that was supposed to host our wedding in 2 weeks would instead be hosting absolutely nothing. Deposits would be lost. Invitations would need to be canceled. Explanations would need to be made. But as I drove Marcus back to my condo, his hand in mine, I knew I'd made the only choice I could live with. Sometimes love means exposing lies. Sometimes saving someone means destroying the illusion they've been living in. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is force someone to face the truth, no matter how painful that truth might be. 3 months after the engagement party that wasn't, I stood at a podium addressing 300 people at the California Addiction Recovery Conference. The organizers had asked me to speak about family intervention, about the line between enabling and supporting, about loving someone enough to let them hit rock bottom. The story of Victoria's public exposure had gone viral. News outlets had covered it. Social media had dissected it. Opinion pieces had been written arguing both sides. Was I a hero for protecting Marcus, or was I cruel for publicly humiliating someone struggling with addiction? I didn't care about the debate. I cared about the results. Intervention is never easy, I said to the assembled crowd of treatment professionals, recovered addicts, and family members. It's messy and painful and often feels cruel in the moment, but enabling is crueler. I clicked to the next slide, showing statistics about addiction and family systems. When I exposed Victoria's lies at that engagement party, people called me heartless. They said I should have been more compassionate, more understanding. They said public humiliation wasn't the way to help someone with addiction. I paused, looking out at the sea of faces. But here's what those critics didn't see. They didn't see the years Victoria had spent lying to her son, isolating him from support systems, making him ashamed of his recovery. They didn't see the fraud she was committing, the laws she was breaking, the complete collapse that was inevitable. They didn't see that my choice wasn't between being kind and being cruel. My choice was between enabling her lies or forcing her to face consequences. And consequences, painful as they are often the only thing that saves an addict's life. After my speech, dozens of people approached me. Parents whose adult children were hiding addictions, spouses who'd been covering for partners, siblings who'd been making excuses for years. One woman, probably in her 50s, grabbed both my hands. My son has been stealing from me to fund his addiction for 3 years. I keep making excuses, keep giving him chances, because I'm afraid of what will happen if I stop enabling him. What do you think will happen? I asked gently. He'll hit rock bottom. He'll lose everything. He might hate me. And if you keep enabling him. She was quiet for a moment. Then he'll eventually die. Still using, still lying, still lost. Those are your choices, I said. Letting him hit a bottom he might survive and recover from, or enabling him toward a bottom he won't survive at all. Tears filled her eyes. How did you know when it was time? How did you know the engagement party was the right moment? I knew because I'd given Victoria a private chance first. I'd offered her help quietly, with compassion, with no audience. She refused and threatened to destroy me if I exposed her. That's when I knew public accountability was the only option left. The woman nodded slowly. I need to stop protecting him. You need to love him enough to let him face consequences. That conversation repeated itself dozens of times that afternoon. Each person carrying the weight of loving an addict, the impossible choice between compassion and accountability. That evening, I had dinner with Marcus and his grandmother Dorothy. We'd been meeting monthly since the engagement party, building a relationship that should have existed all along. Dorothy had moved to San Diego to be closer to her daughter during Victoria's incarceration and treatment. Victoria had been sentenced to 18 months in federal prison for fraud, with credit for the 4 months she'd already spent in intensive treatment. The gambling debts were being negotiated. The addiction was being addressed through mandatory counseling. I visited her yesterday, Dorothy said, over pasta at a quiet Italian restaurant. She's different this time. Really different. Different how? Marcus asked. He'd been visiting his mother weekly, slowly rebuilding a relationship based on truth instead of lies. Honest, raw, vulnerable. For the first time in her life, she's not trying to be anyone except who she actually is. Dorothy pulled out a letter. She asked me to give this to you both. Marcus opened it carefully. His hands still shook slightly when dealing with anything related to his mother. The trauma of that night, of having his entire understanding of his family shattered, hadn't fully healed yet. Maybe it never would completely. He read aloud. Dear Marcus and Claire, I'm sitting in my prison cell, 60 days sober, real sober, not just didn't take pills today, but actual recovery sober. And I'm writing this without any of the masks I've worn my whole life. Claire, you were right about everything. The pills, the lies, the gambling, the fraud, all of it. I spent years building a fantasy because I was terrified of being ordinary. Terrified that if Marcus knew who I really was, he wouldn't love me. But the irony is that by trying to be extraordinary, I became someone truly awful. I became a liar, a fraud, someone who hurt the person I loved most in this world. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it yet. But I am asking for something else, the chance to show you both that this time is different. I'm doing the work, real work. Therapy, 12 steps, Brutal honesty about who I am and what I've done. I'm facing my mother, my past, my addiction, all the things I ran from for so long. The woman you exposed at that engagement party, that's who I'd become. Broken, desperate, drowning in lies and pills and gambling debts. But she's not who I have to stay. Thank you, Claire, for caring enough about Marcus to stop me, for being brave enough to expose the truth when I was too cowardly to tell it myself, for showing me that recovery is possible, even for someone who destroyed everything. Marcus, I love you. The real you, not the fantasy son I tried to create. And I'm learning to love the real me too, the ordinary woman from Modesto who made terrible choices but is trying to become someone better. I hope someday you can forgive me. But more than that, I hope someday I can become someone worthy of being honestly known by you. With love and accountability, Mom. Marcus set the letter down, tears streaming down his face. Do you think she means it? Really means it this time? If you feel my words, show your support by liking the video and subscribing to the channel. And tell me from which city you belong, so I can see how far a woman's impactful voice can reach. Help me build this community, so we can bring more truthful stories for you. Dorothy reached across the table and took her grandson's hand. I've watched her fail at recovery before. I've heard these promises before, but this time feels different. This time she has nothing left to hide behind. No pills, no lies, no fantasy identity, just herself, raw and real, and finally getting honest. That's what rock bottom gives you, I said quietly. It strips away everything except the truth, and the truth, as painful as it is the only foundation you can build real recovery on. Marcus was quiet for a long time. Then, I want to believe her. God, I want to believe she can change. Then believe her, I said, but verify. Watch her actions, not just her words. Let her prove it over time. And if she fails again, then you'll know you gave her a real chance. You'll know you loved her enough to hope, even after everything. We finished dinner talking about safer things. Dorothy's new apartment, Marcus's latest architectural project, my plans to open a 10th Renewal Path Center focusing on family intervention programs. As we left the restaurant, Marcus pulled me aside. Claire, I need to ask you something. Anything. He pulled out a small box from his pocket. Inside was the engagement ring I'd given back to him months ago, after the catastrophe at the party. I know we agreed to postpone everything until the situation with my mother settled. I know we said we needed time to process and heal and rebuild trust. Marcus, but I don't want to wait anymore. You saved my life, Claire. You loved me enough to risk everything, to expose painful truths, to protect me even when I couldn't see that I needed protecting. Tears were filling my eyes. I want to marry you, he said, not in some elaborate country club with 200 people watching, not with designer flowers and crystal chandeliers and all the superficial things my mother thought mattered. Just us, the truth, and the people who genuinely love us. Are you sure? I asked. After everything? I'm more sure now than I ever was before, because now I know exactly who you are. Someone with the courage to tell hard truths. Someone with the strength to do the right thing, even when it costs everything. Someone who understands that real love sometimes looks like cruelty, but is actually the deepest compassion. Will you marry me, Claire Donovan? Will you build a life based on truth with me? I looked at this man I loved, this man who'd been broken by his mother's lies and was choosing to rebuild with honesty. This man who'd been hurt by my intervention and was thanking me for it anyway. Yes, I said. Yes, absolutely yes. We married 6 weeks later, in a small ceremony at Renewal Path's first center in San Bernardino. 50 people attended. Dorothy was there, crying happy tears. Melissa stood as my maid of honor. Jackson Webb came, bringing his daughter who'd been through our program. James, Marcus's best friend, served as best man. And through a video call from prison, Victoria watched her son get married, to the woman who'd exposed all her lies. When the officiant asked if anyone had objections, there was a long, weighted pause. Then Victoria's voice came through the speakers, clear, despite the institutional background noise. I have something to say. The room went silent. Marcus tensed beside me. "I want to thank Claire," Victoria said, her voice shaking but steady, "for loving my son enough to protect him from me, for being brave enough to expose truths I was too cowardly to tell, for showing me what real strength looks like." She paused, wiping tears from her face on camera. "Marcus, I'm so proud of you, not for the fantasy accomplishments I made up or the fake legacy I pretended to give you. I'm proud that you chose truth over comfortable lies. I'm proud that you're building something real with someone who genuinely loves you." "Claire," Victoria looked directly at the camera, "you were right about everything. Addiction doesn't care about your pedigree or your prescriptions. It takes everyone the same way. And recovery requires brutal honesty, the kind you showed me even when I hated you for it. I'm 93 days sober today. It's the longest I've been clean in 3 years. And it's only possible because you loved my son enough to force me to face consequences I'd spent years running from." The tears were streaming down my face now, down Marcus's face, down Dorothy's face. "Thank you for stopping me before I destroyed him completely. Thank you for showing me that it's never too late to get honest. Thank you for being the kind of woman I wish I'd had the courage to be." After the ceremony, after the small reception with homemade food and genuine laughter, Marcus and I drove to the beach.
Just the two of us, watching the sunset over the Pacific.
"Do you think she'll make it?" Marcus asked. "Do you think she'll stay sober after she gets out of prison?" "I don't know," I answered honestly. "Recovery is a choice you have to make every single day. Some people make that choice consistently, others struggle. But Marcus, whether she makes it or not, you did everything right. You gave her accountability, consequences, and the chance to face herself honestly. That's all anyone can do." "I used to be so ashamed," he said quietly, "of your recovery, of my own history with addiction, of anything that suggested we weren't perfect. My mother taught me that shame. She made me believe that past struggles meant permanent unworthiness. And now? Now I understand that the opposite is true. Our struggles, our recoveries, our willingness to face hard truths, that's what makes us strong. That's what makes us real." He turned to me, took both my hands. "You changed my life, Claire Donovan, not just by exposing my mother's lies, but by showing me that honesty is worth more than any facade. That truth, however painful, is the only foundation worth building on." "You changed mine too," I said. "You showed me that being in recovery doesn't make me less worthy of love, that my past doesn't define my value, that the right person will love me for my truth, not despite it." We sat on that beach until the stars came out. Two people who'd both been broken by addiction, our own and others, building something new together, something based on truth instead of lies, something real instead of fantasy. 1 year later, I received a letter from Victoria. She'd been released from prison 2 months early for good behavior and exceptional progress in treatment. She was living with Dorothy in Modesto, working as a receptionist at a dental office, attending meetings daily, rebuilding her life from scratch. The letter was different from her previous ones. No grandiose promises, no elaborate apologies, just simple, honest truth. "Dear Claire, I'm 1 year and 4 months sober today. I work a regular job, live in a small apartment with my mother, drive a used Honda. I'm nobody special or important or distinguished. And I've never been happier or more at peace in my entire life. Turns out being ordinary is actually extraordinary when you're being honestly ordinary instead of desperately trying to fake being special. I attend meetings where I tell the truth about who I am, Victoria from Modesto, gambling addict and pill addict, daughter of a cafeteria worker and a maintenance supervisor, someone who destroyed her relationship with her son by building lies instead of love. People at meetings don't care about my fake gallery or my fictional foundation. They care that I show up, do the work, help newcomers when I can, and stay honest about my struggles. I'm making amends slowly, to my mother for the money I stole and the years I wasted running, to Marcus for the lies and the manipulation and the shame I taught him to feel, to you for the cruelty and the contempt and the prejudice I showed you simply because you reflected everything I was terrified of becoming. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect Marcus to want me in his life regularly. I don't expect anything except the chance to keep showing up, keep getting honest, keep building something real from the wreckage I created. But I wanted you to know that what you did at that engagement party, as horrifying and humiliating as it was in the moment, saved my life. Literally saved it. I was drowning in pills and debt and lies, and I couldn't stop. I needed someone to force me to face consequences, and you cared enough about Marcus to be that person. Thank you for loving my son better than I did. Thank you for being brave enough to tell truths I couldn't face. Thank you for showing me that rock bottom, as devastating as it feels, can actually be the solid ground you rebuild from. I'm not the woman I pretended to be at that engagement party. I'm not wealthy or sophisticated or connected. I'm just Victoria, one day at a time, trying to stay sober and be honest and make amends for the harm I caused. And somehow, that's enough. With gratitude and humility, Victoria. I shared the letter with Marcus that evening. We read it together in our small house in La Jolla, the home we bought together, furnished with honesty and genuine affection, instead of designer labels and false prestige. She sounds different, Marcus said quietly. Really different this time. For the first time since I met her, she sounds like an actual person instead of a performance. Do you think I should respond? Should I try to rebuild something with her? I thought about that carefully. I think you should do whatever feels right for your recovery and your peace. If having her in your life helps you heal, then yes. If you need more time or if you need permanent boundaries, that's valid too. What would you do? Me? I'd give her a chance. Not to go back to how things were, but to build something new and honest. Because Marcus, everyone deserves the chance to recover, even people who hurt us, especially people who hurt us and are genuinely trying to change. He was quiet for a long time. Then he pulled out his phone and started typing. What are you writing? I asked. A response, telling her I'm proud of her, telling her that being honestly ordinary is the bravest thing she's ever done, telling her that I'm willing to rebuild, slowly, with truth as our foundation. I kissed his forehead. That's beautiful. I learned it from you. You taught me that love sometimes means hard boundaries and painful truths, but it also means giving people room to grow, to change, to become better versions of themselves. 3 years after the engagement party that wasn't, Victoria attended our small family Thanksgiving at Dorothy's house in Modesto. She'd been sober for 3 years and 7 months. She worked at the dental office, volunteered at a local recovery center, sponsored 3 women in her 12-step program. She looked different. Older, yes, but also lighter somehow, without the weight of maintaining lies, without the constant performance of being someone she wasn't. She seemed more relaxed, more genuine, more at peace. Claire, she said to me as we prepared the meal together in Dorothy's modest kitchen, I want to tell you something I should have said years ago. I looked up from chopping vegetables. I was wrong about you, about recovery, about strength, about what makes someone worthy of respect. You're one of the strongest, most courageous people I've ever met. And I'm sorry I couldn't see that until I destroyed everything trying to be something I wasn't. Victoria, no, let me finish. You showed me that being in recovery isn't shameful, that rebuilding from rock bottom takes more strength than maintaining a perfect facade ever could, that honesty, even painful honesty, is the greatest gift you can give someone you love. She wiped tears from her eyes. Thank you for saving my son from me. Thank you for forcing me to face myself. Thank you for showing me that ordinary, honest, and real is infinitely more valuable than extraordinary, fabricated, and false. I hugged her then, this woman who'd tried so hard to destroy me, who'd learned through catastrophic consequences what I'd learned through my own rock bottom, that truth is the only foundation worth building on. That evening, sitting around Dorothy's dinner table with its mismatched chairs and secondhand dishes, with Marcus beside me and Victoria across from us, and Dorothy at the head, I felt something I hadn't expected to feel. Gratitude. Not despite the pain of the past 3 years, but because of it. Because sometimes the hardest moments, the most painful exposures, the most devastating breakdowns, are actually the doorways to the most profound healing. Isn't always gentle. Sometimes it's fierce and protective and willing to break things to save people. Because recovery, whether from addiction or from lies or from the shame that keeps us hiding, requires the brutal courage to be seen exactly as we are. And because the truth, as terrifying and painful as it can be, is always, always worth telling. As I looked around that table at my husband, his mother, his grandmother, this family that had been shattered and rebuilt with honesty instead of lies, I understood something fundamental. We don't get to choose whether we'll face hard truths. We only get to choose whether we'll face them on our own terms or whether life will force us to face them through catastrophe. I chose to force that catastrophe. I chose to expose Victoria's lies at that engagement party. I chose truth over comfort, protection over politeness, long-term healing over short-term peace. And it had been the right choice. Not an easy choice, not a painless choice, but the right one. Because 3 years later, we were all still here, still sober, still honest, still building something real together. And that, in the end, was worth every painful moment it took to get here. If you feel my words, show your support by liking the video and subscribing to the channel. And tell me from which city you belong, so I can see how far a woman's impactful voice can reach. Help me build this community so we can bring more truthful stories for you, because these stories matter. Stories of women who refuse to stay silent, who choose truth over comfort, who love fiercely enough to do the hard things, the painful things, the necessary things. This is my story. This is our story. And I'm sharing it because somewhere out there, someone else is facing an impossible choice between exposing a lie and maintaining peace. Someone else is wondering if they have the courage to tell a hard truth. And I want them to know, you do. You have the courage. And the truth, however painful, is always worth telling.